unseen stalkers and the hostility of the unknown howler. But the deepest fear is reserved for the stories we are told as children. The boogeymen, the cryptids, the local legends, and the devastating moment we realize they are rooted in blood, malice, and bone-cold reality. Tonight, we reveal the darkest connection, the stories that started as warnings, only to be unmasked as devastatingly true. We are entering the realm of the documented urban legend, where fiction ends and true crime begins. Most people look away from the dark. You're here because you can't. We are strictly applying the optimized hooked and crime formulas to analyze the evidence and confront the horrifying reality that the monsters are often just people. Our first case is perhaps the most devastating example of a legend being replaced by a horrifying reality. For decades, the parents of Staten Island, New York, warned their children about Cropsey. The urban legend painted him as a monstrous serial killer, scarred, burned, and bearing a hook for a hand, stealing children to cope with the loss of his own son. The hook is the sudden, chilling blurring of the line between myth and true crime. The Who was the real monster. Andre Rand, a former worker at the infamously brutal Willowbrook State School. The What was a terrifying wave of child disappearances starting in the early 1970s. The Context was a community paralyzed by fear. The rising action began with Rand's early criminal history. After working at Willowbrook, Rand was arrested and served time for the attempted attack of a 9-year-old girl in 1969. But within 16 months of his release, the reports started cropping up. Little girls vanishing without a trace, like 5-year-old Alice Pereira, who disappeared from her building's lobby. The legend of Cropsey had been replaced by the very real threat of Andre Rand. The investigation spanned decades. Throughout the 70s and 80s, dozens of young kids disappeared. Rand was the prime suspect, often seen hanging around young children, even taking them out to lunch. Yet for years, the legal system failed. The obstacle was a desperate lack of undeniable evidence, allowing Rand to walk the streets as a free man, despite the suspicion that surrounded him. He was briefly jailed in 1983 for picking up 11 children from a YMCA, but the revolving door of justice always seemed to release him. The mystery at the core of the case is the chilling why. Why the targeting of the most vulnerable? Why did he evade true justice for so long? The suspense was the community's living nightmare, knowing the real boogeyman was hiding in plain sight. The emotional peak arrived in 1987. Police finally secured the undeniable evidence that Rand was behind the disappearance and murder of 12-year-old Jennifer Schweiger, a young girl with Down syndrome. In 1988, he was sentenced to 25 years to life. The ending finally brought justice to one victim, though Rand was later only charged with one additional major crime, the kidnapping of Holly Ann Hughes in 2004. The closure is imperfect. The real-life Cropsey is incarcerated, but the memory of the children he took and the decades he walked free remains a devastating horror story that proves some legends are all too true.
Our second case is less about malice and more about an obsession with solitude that bordered on the fanatical, turning a man into a boogeyman. For decades, cabin owners in the peaceful North Pond area of Maine's Kennebec Valley lived in fear of the North Pond Hermit. The Hook was the inexplicable crime spree. Over 1,000 break-ins across the 80s, 1990s, and 2000s. thousands. The what was the baffling theft of mundane necessities, food, cooking utensils, propane, and toiletries. The who was the phantom thief, a legend whispered around campfires whom no one could ever find. The context was a community desperate for answers. The rising action saw the homeowners realize the thefts followed a pattern, peaking during the off-season between Labor Day and Memorial Day. Groups of homeowners ventured out, trying to catch the elusive thief, only to find no trace, fueling the hermit's mysterious reputation. The investigation proved fruitless until a single, determined officer took on the case. The obstacle was the hermit's astonishing dedication to isolation. Christopher Thomas Knight, as he was eventually identified, had been living alone in the middle of the woods in an unheated nylon tent for 27 years. He survived brutal Maine winters, often 20 degrees below zero, by stealing from the cabins. The how of his survival and evasion was his genius for stealth. He never lit a fire and only moved at night. For nearly 3 decades, he had only one conversation with another human being, a quick hi to a passing hiker. The mystery is the profound why. Why did a 20-year-old Knight, right after high school, decide to disappear entirely? When asked how long he had been in the woods, he chillingly replied, "Since the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown," which occurred in 1986. The suspense lies in the magnitude of his self-imposed prison and the incredible lengths he went to preserve his privacy, remaining untouched by modern society for half his life. The ending came in April 2013, when an officer finally arrested Knight in the act. The closure is the astonishing truth. The legend of the North Pond Hermit was not a creature or a group of thieves, but one single man, consumed by an overwhelming desire for solitude, whose greatest crime was simply existing outside the fabric of humanity. He paid his sentence and, true to form, disappeared once again, living a quiet life in rural Maine. Our final urban legend is perhaps the most bizarre and relentless. Across the late 80s and 90s in northwest England, whispers spread of Purple Aki. The legend described a massive bodybuilder who would hunt down young, muscular men and rugby players, demanding to feel their muscles. The details were ridiculous, tales of him swallowing teens whole. But the core of the story was terrifyingly true. The hook is the sheer absurdity and persistence of his compulsion. The who was Kinloch Cherokee, a very real man who is often seen traveling by train, asking young men the exact same disturbing question. The what was a pattern of harassment that stalked the streets of Liverpool. The rising action took a truly dark turn in 1986. After being harassed by Aki, 16-year-old Gary Kelly fled in terror. Aki followed Kelly to a local swimming pool, causing the teenager to run to a train station and jump onto the railroad tracks to escape. The emotional peak was the tragic end. Gary Kelly was accidentally electrocuted by one of the rails. Although Aki was convicted of involuntary manslaughter, the legal system presented the obstacle. Aki appealed, claiming racial bias, and was incredibly freed and awarded £35,000 in compensation. The mystery is the core of this modern-day predator, the unrelenting why behind his compulsion and his uncanny ability to evade long-term punishment. The suspense is the reality that Aki went in and out of jail for decades for harassment, forbidden from being near schools, yet always returning to Aki is alive and well, walking the streets and still asking random men to feel their muscles. The urban legend continues to stalk the streets, a horrifying reminder that sometimes the monster truly does live on. We have unmasked the urban legends. We have proven that the Cropsey you feared was Andre Rand, the hermit you chased was Christopher Knight, and the whispered name of Purple Aki is terrifyingly still a threat today. The pattern is clear. Whether driven by malice, isolation, or compulsion, the greatest dangers often start as myths before they become convictions. Which of these three terrifying realities, the killer, the phantom, or the predator, do you think is the most disturbing proof that truth is stranger and scarier than fiction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to remain anchored to the truth in the face of absolute horror, then you must like this video.